Hey there, Course 1 Math, Lesson 26. It's called Using Manipulatives to Reduce Fractions, and then let's try adding and subtracting some mixed numbers. So lots of fraction work today. You cut out some manipulatives that help us illustrate fractions and visualize what we're doing when we do fraction operations. I think it was investigation 2, so some of this looks familiar, right? And blue is representing the manipulatives you're using, and the white is what you have to kind of visualize is the rest of the whole when you bring out, say, 2 of your fourths. Make something that looks like this, and the white is what's not showing, but it's there if you picture the whole pizza, and those are just the 2 pieces that were already taken away and eaten, and you're illustrating the final 2 fourths that, when put together, really is the same as just dividing up a half with an extra line here. And if you add 2 lines and evenly divide, you've got your 3/6, and 4 lines, well, 3 lines here, and then you got 4/8. All of these reduce down to a half, right? They reduce because they're all the same thing, just with different, bigger numbers. 4/8 can be turned into 1/2 by dividing both top and bottom by their common factor, which is 2. No, 4. 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 8 twice. So you get 1/2. So you could use fraction manipulatives to see when you put 2 6 together, or you stick a third on top, they're going to look the same. So if you can make the same exact, has to be exact size with less pieces, you know you reduced it. Make sense? When adding mixed numbers, first of all, what is a mixed number? It's an example. How about 1.5? Sorry, let me fix this quick. One and a half looks like that. Why do we call it mixed? Because it has a whole number. This number is not divided up, the 1, mixed with a fraction, which is a part number, like 1/2. Put them together, you get a mixed number. So let's try adding and subtracting them. Let's say we're adding up that and 1 1/3. Okay, what would be your first step? I've already got it in vertical format for you, the way we would normally add whole numbers. Now, easier than turning these into impropers, please don't turn this into a 3/2 and 4/3. Just because that's more work than it needs to be. It would work out, but don't do that, please. If I see you doing that in your work on your lesson practice, in your written practice, I'll know you didn't watch this part of the video, and you'll have to go back and do it again. Instead, with adding and subtracting mixed numbers, adding and subtracting, not multiplying and dividing, but right now we're adding and subtracting. Put these together first. Add up 1 + 1 is 2. Then worry about these 2 fractions. Do fractions and whole numbers separately. And generally, fractions you like to do horizontally. So then you, in your work, you'll jump over to a spot where you can go like this. Then turn top and bottom into a common denominator, right? Multiply this one by 3/3. Multiply the third by 2/2. So that the half becomes 3/6. And the third becomes 2/6. And then we can put that back up here and do 3/6 plus 2/6 is 5/6. Alright? So that was this part I just did. You have to keep a lot straight, right? We just went through a few steps going all over the paper. In fact, I didn't show you a very good example of how to go about the work. Try to keep it into our little square, right? I'm getting a little spread out, but you try to do your work in that little area that we get in homework. Keep it neat. Maybe start towards the top of the box, so you can work your way down the box so that your answer ends up down here and not like Mr. Otto did, where he was up and then down and then up and then down. And I guess the answer ended up down there at the end, but 2/3 of a circle is what percent? So when you're adding up the percents, you're going to get perfect example of adding mixed numbers, because third in percent is 33 1/3. And then if you're adding those together, what's your first step? Well, if you were listening, you want to do the whole numbers first, the wholes, not the parts. So put your 33s together, you get 66. And these are already common denominators. So 1/3 and 1/3. Notice it doesn't become 2/6. Bottom numbers have to be the same, and they stay the same when adding or subtracting fractions. But the top, we add up. 1 plus 1 is 2. Numerators add up, so you get the 2/3. Don't forget to label it the way we started, percent. Good so far? These are really important abilities with fractions to feel comfortable, so don't be afraid to ask pure questions. They do it again with 16 2/3%. Notice in this case, you end up with 4/3 because putting 2/3 together twice, right? You put your 16s together, you get 32. But then you put your 2/3 together and you get an improper, which even if it was even if this was the only part we did and that was the whole problem, you still wouldn't want to leave your answer improper with the top too heavy for the bottom. You would always turn this into what? 1 and, well, 1 is the 3/3, and then you still got your third left over. So that's what you would normally write, even if this was the whole problem. But this was just this part of a bigger problem. And if we got the 32, let's stick the 4/3 on, which really means we're doing 32 and 1 1/3, which you should be able to do that in your head. Final answer, 16 2/3%, and 16 2/3% combined is 33 1/3%. How we doing? An improper fraction is where the top is too heavy for the bottom. The numerator is bigger than the denominator, and we can't leave them that way, especially in that situation. Rory lives 2 3/4 miles from school, rode his bike from home to school and back. So you have to put the length of the trip on top of itself to get the total distance. And once again, 2's added up are 4, but 3/4 plus 3/4 is end up being 6/4. So we had common denominators, no brainer to keep these as mixed numbers when we added, but then you have to take the 4/4 and put it on the 4 to make it 5, leaving you with 2 of the fourths reduces to half, keeping it all straight. Whole number part of the answer, 5, fraction part, half. Rory rode his bike 5.5 miles. Let's finish on this subtraction. 5 3/8 minus 1 1/8. Again, they're keeping it easy with the denominators always being the same. Let's do our whole numbers first. Combining 5 with a -1 leaves you with 4, easy. Then it was 3/8 minus 1/8. Again, easy, we don't even have to borrow. They're keeping it simple. Now don't forget, we can already right away say that that's a fourth. You could use your fraction manipulatives to place 2/8 on top of a fourth to see that they both look like this. Exact same size, less pieces with the fourth, so we use that. Don't forget where we started. That's going to be the most common error. We're going to end and say, fourth's my answer. Nope, that was the first of 2 steps. Well, 3 steps if you count this easy one. 4 and a fourth. Don't forget your whole number part. It's a mixed number problem, which means your answer might have a mix of answers. Whole number and fraction. Make sure you don't leave out half. Let's do A, B, and then pick 2. A, B, pick 2 of these, please. Don't be afraid to ask questions.